Yeah. All right, now the class has started. I've started recording. I am just going to share my screen now, and we are going to kickstart. So, Adebayo, I am going to share my screen. Then I would give us another approach that we may use to solve the current problem that you are facing. Because so this is what we did this is where we are at from yesterday. And this is the Figma file. This is what we are trying to build. We are trying to build all of this. So from yesterday's class, let me just request from you so I can design here. Okay. So this is what we did yesterday. And so, this is where we are at. But then I did something else before this class. I changed something about the layouts, from yesterday, but then I'll just undo so that I can go back to where we are at from yesterday, so it is not confusing. So just give me a second. Okay. All right, so let's assume this is where we stopped from yesterday. We have the hero section, which is position relative, and we have this hero image, which is so let's just go through the nav. So we have the hero section, we have the padding global with the padding section large, which is having all of this. We have the container large, which is the container. Now inside of it we have the hero component. Okay, all right, so we have the hero component. The hero component houses the hero content and houses the hero image. Now, because of how the layout is here, we had to make the hero image an absolute so that it can rest on the edge of, it can rest on the edge of that guy. All right, so this was where we stopped yesterday, but then this pattern will most likely not work because of different screen sizes, just as how Tunji has laid a complaint. Now, if I publish, which I have, and I open this on a new, if I open it, it looks perfect on my screen. On my laptop, it's perfect. On my monitor, it is perfect. But this may not be the case for someone else. Maybe someone with a smaller screen size or 13-inch or something like that. It may not be the case. So let me introduce to us another approach. So this is one approach, the whole absolute thing. And you need to understand how, positioning works, absolute, relative, and all of that, which I did explain yesterday. But now let us follow another approach, in doing this same layout. All right. Which I had a call with Michael earlier and we talked about it and we came to a conclusion. Okay, something else can be done, which I'm going to do now. Now, we have our section hero here, and assuming this hero image is not set to absolute, let us reset this guy. Let us just reset. Okay, and let us also reset this section hero, take away the relative. Let's assume this is just the norm. Hero image, hero content and hero image, they are both inside of hero components. All right, this is how it's going to look like. This image will just be here. There will be plenty of space underneath it. This will be the norm. This is not bad. This is not bad at all. But we are going to solve it. We are going to make it look like this. Let it clip to the edge of this section hero. Now, this is what we have. Now, without following the absolute approach, let me introduce also another style of approach. Now, what I'm going to do now, because like I always say, this whole thing is more of thinking creatively. The idea of Webflow and building is more of problem solving. It is more of how you think compared to how much you know the tool. If you can think creatively, if you can think problem solving, if you can think outside the box, that is the language I would use. It will be easier for you to, manipulate. It is just a little bit of manipulation. So now let's jump right into it. So we have the hero section. Now, you ask yourself, why do we have this space under here? Someone can tell me, if anyone can tell me, someone should tell me why we have this extra space under here. Why? If you know why, you can just, raise up your hand or just unmute yourself. If you can tell us why, then we are one step to solving the problem, because we want this image to clip to this edge. So anyone, who do we have? Anyone can tell us why we have that extra image. What is making this extra space be? All right. Ask. Answer.
So I'm thinking, would it be because of the length of the section hero itself? That's the section hero one. Maybe
okay, that's a very good idea. Section hero has 100 VH, which makes it very lengthy. Because you give it 100 VH, it has to be 100 VH. So that could be the case. That is one we are, we are getting close to our solution. So now let us take away this 100 VH. Let us take it. We don't need the height for the hero section. We don't want to use the height. So if I take this out, if I reset it, take it back to 0, let's see what happens. Boom. Now we no longer have a height. There is no height anywhere, but we still have that extra space. Yes, we appreciate we don't have height anymore. Section hero has no height, but we still have this extra space. So if I preview our website, our hero section is not having 100 VH, but we still have that extra space. Anyone, again, so your solution is good, it's part of the problem which we have solved, but then something is still wrong. So does anyone have, can anyone, okay, great, someone is raising up his hand.
Maybe it's the container.
Toyin? Who is speaking? Is it Toyin that is speaking?
Yes, it's Toyin. The container. Is it the container?
You said container large. Now I'm not sure it's a container large. Container large is just doing its job. Container large is more of the width. But now we're having problem with the height. We're having problem with container large is just a width. If you hover on the container large, you will see the job that it is doing. All right. Who else is raising up his hands? Oh yeah, Osomo Michael.
Yeah, I'm just putting a guess if it's the padding of the the padding global.
That's awesome. That's very amazing. Osomo, that is very amazing. The problem is coming from the padding global. Not you would know, because padding global has padding global and padding section large. This padding section large is giving top and bottom 8 rem. So if I hover on this 8 rem, you'll see something like green telling you this is the job of that padding global, padding section large. It's giving 8 rem to the top, 8 rem to the bottom. That's why we have this space. This is 8 rem worth of space, and this is 8 rem worth of space to the bottom. So you see, so you would always have this space and you'll be frustrated. Hey, how can this thing be? How can we make it? Because you said padding section large, 8 rem on top, 8 rem below. So it will always be like this. So if we want to take away the bottom H rem, that is what we should aim. That's what we should be aiming at doing. How do we take off the bottom H 8 rem? If we can take away this bottom H 8 rem, our problem is solved for life. We are good. You see, we didn't have to do absolute and all those things. It's just under this padding global. Let us find a way to take away the bottom H rem. Now, what do we do? Now, if you tamper with this H rem as the class is like this, it will not make sense, because you are tampering with something you're not supposed to tamper with. You can't just rush and come here and change this to 0. No, because you've tampered with a class that the job, it's called a utility class. It is called a utility class. You do not just tamper with utility classes because you are going to use it elsewhere. If you set here to 0, that means if you want to use it again elsewhere, it is going to be 0, and you don't want that. So what we can do is we are going to duplicate this padding section large. We are going to duplicate it. That means we want to create our own custom padding section just for the course of this hero section. Instead of editing it directly, we are going to click on this arrow here and we are going to say duplicate this class. That means if we duplicate it, we can call it whatever we like. and use it the way we want without it affecting the originality. I'm going to duplicate it. Now I'm going to maybe call it padding section large, padding, okay, I'll say padding section home. I'll say padding section because it is for just the home, the hero section, or padding section hero. It's a special padding for just the hero section. It's a special thing for just the hero section. That's what I want to call it, padding section hero. Now I'm going to still give the top 8 rem, and the bottom is having nothing, 0. So you see, we have our 8 rem here, and this image is beautifully clipped to the edge because there is no bottom padding. If I try to add bottom padding, you will see how it is adding. See how it's adding. See, that is the problem we were facing before. So this is another method. So this one is automatically 0. Boom. See how it is perfectly clipped, and we have extra white space, which is beautiful. So if I publish now, I publish, and let's go and check what we have on live screen. Publish, and let me reload. Boom. See, perfect. In fact, this is the best approach. So there are cases where you can alter your foundation. It mustn't really follow padding global. There are cases, in some rare cases, based on how the design looks, you might just tweak that foundation a bit, but you have to duplicate whatever you want to tweak so that you are not messing with the actual job of that class. So you have to, like, if it requires you to alter the container large for whatever reason, don't just go and alter it. Try to duplicate it so that you are creating a fresh container large for the cause of that reason, for the cause of why you are altering it. Give it a name that would fit what you are using it for. Just as I said here, the combo class is now padding section hero. So it's a special padding for the hero section. You can call it whatever. You can just say padding section Chiamaka or padding section, any name you want to use. Do we understand? Like, are we clear? This is like a better approach. You don't have to stress about, but it's still good to learn absolute and relative and all those things. So just in case for whatever layout. Olatunji, are you clear?
Yes, I'm clear. My own question is the 100 viewpoints you removed.
Okay.
I thought it was supposed to be like a standard practice.
Okay, now let us go back and try to add that 100 VH. Let's see what's going to happen. Back to my section hero, and let us add 100 VH. Now it is going to add a weird spacing for us here under, but we can also solve that problem easily now. What I can do, I will go to my under section hero still. What I can do now is to I'll click on still my section hero. I'll make it display flex box, vertical, and top bottom didn't work. This now, what is holding it from? We have the top and we have the bottom, and we have the top, we have this, we have padding global, we have 8M at the bottom and 0 here. Let me see. Back to the Figma file. Okay, I think what I need to do is maybe increase the image. Okay, yeah. So we are back at the 100 VH, but I think I'll need to increase this image. Yeah, I think the image increment. Let me see if that will solve the problem. Increasing the image. I hope that solves the problem though. Image has been increased. Let me launch. Let me publish. And let's see what we have here now. Reload. Okay, this is how it looks. We still have some weird spacing here. Let me see, let me go back and see why that is. We have one rem here, we don't need you. Section hero. Okay. We have container large. We have hero component. Okay. So let's try this 6 rem spacing, publish again, and let's check, and let us check. So yeah, you have to just keep tweaking it till it fits. Maybe 8 rem. Let's see, let me put this at 1440. Okay, so I put it at 8 rem. Let's publish and see. Sorry, 7 rem. So yeah, you have to just keep testing different sizes and all of that. Now let's publish. Let's reload. Okay, so it keeps going down. So yeah, so this is the 100 VH, and we need this image to touch that. So the last thing you want to do now is to come to this image again, and can it increase any further? Okay, let's just say here it should be, let's say 8. Okay, and let's publish. So yeah, that's it. Following the method. That's if you want it to actually be 100 VH, then these are the, you know, things. So yeah. Oh, we still have a weird space here. Jesus. Let me check on this. Let me check this screen and see. Let me check here. Yeah. Okay, it's even scrolling. So yeah. Okay. So yeah, that's most likely it's 1920. Look how tiny it is on 1920 screen size. Look how weird it is. But without this 100 VH, it's perfect. So I think this is most likely how it should be on 1920, on 1440. It's perfect. But now, like, I increased the image. I made the image too big. So I have to go back and reduce it a little bit to maybe 970. All right, so let's publish. You know, this design is static, and the one I can edit has like animations and interactions, so you won't really feel. Okay, let me see, reload. Okay. So yeah, this is how best I think it should be, if you ask me. Any question at this point? Anyone? Tunji?
Yeah, boss.
Okay. Toyin, Cynthia, Oluwafemi. Are we good?
Yeah, they're fine. It's good to know that there are many ways to solve any particular issue.
Yeah, any layout you have, it just boils down to how you are viewing it. You know, there are no right or wrong answers, but just follow the, you know, principle. Just follow the right building block. But there are no right or wrong answers. If it's very custom, you might want to break some 1 or 2 rules, just as we've done. So yeah, that's it. That's it. All right, who raised up his hands? Okay, Femi, you can go ahead. Tell me. I see.
The image is not aligned to the middle yet.
What's that?
The image.
The image.
Yeah,
Okay.
because that image is
Let me
not
see.
centered.
Let me see. Okay. This image is not centered. Are you sure?
Okay, okay, better now.
It's centered. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Cool. All right. So right now I would have to hand off. I'll have to hand over to Michael. Michael is going to run us through this industry leaders section. And okay, who has a question should go for it. Tunji.
Yeah, still about layout.
Okay.
What else should we talk about?
Okay. All right. Can share. You say what?
So the new canvas settings for different screen sizes.
Yeah. What about it?
Let's say for my screen, my PC, one I'm used to design is like 13 inches. Yeah. So if I set standard is supposed to be 100% zoom. So if I do that, everything just looks closer on Webflow.
Even with this new method I used.
Okay, let me, because I already zoomed out. Let me zoom to 100%.
Yeah. You can try this new pattern, and I don't think it will be a problem anymore. Because let me save my screen, for instance. Let me do this zoom thingy. How did it zoom save? Where am I supposed to see that thing save? Is it on that arc file here? View. Okay, so let me zoom out. Control plus. So you see plus. So you see, look at look, if this is like a very big screen, but you see how it is here. You see, and 100% is perfect and all of that. See, very mighty zoom. Do you get? You grab. So yeah, you can just try this new method that we have done.
Yes, so I think it's normal now. So I'm saying the viewport also affects the canvas setting when designing on Webflow.
It depends on the kind of layout you are doing. That is why yesterday someone asked about percentage, and I tried to say I don't use percentage often, because if you are working on some type of layout, using percentage would most likely not flow how you want it, you know. But aside from that, I don't think there is any other huge criteria. But there are some layouts as well that may not look good on, you know, some type of screens, you know, because desktop screen can also be 992. And sometimes when I'm working, you know, and let's say this is my Webflow project. Sometimes the layer, the 992, this 992 is still desktop. It still falls on that desktop. Then most times, because of that layout and how small the layout is, it may not look good. It may look shrunk on 992. But in my head, I know that nobody uses 992 anymore. Nobody uses 992 screen. I know that it is looking good on from 1100 to 1440 to 1920. So those are the cases where I, you know, feel layouts, you know, may be messed up or not. But I don't think generally, it depends on the kind of layout you're doing, give or take. It depends on the kind of layout you're building. Like now, look at how it is across 992, and if I increase it, it's all still looking very good in 1288 and 1290 and 1440. So you might get some layout problems depending on, you might get some screen problems sometimes depending on the layout, how it is. It might look good on one particular screen size, but it may not look good on a bigger screen size and all of that, or a smaller screen size. So it just depends. It's kind of tricky. Sure you get. So that's why testing, this is where testing comes in. When you're done building, you have to like test on Safari, on Chrome, on different browsers. You have to test on big screens because it might look perfect sometimes on normal laptops. But if you take it to, bigger screen, like I could remember when I was working on this project, how it was kind of frustrating because they needed some level of perfection, and it will make sense on some type of screen. It may not make sense on bigger screen. Some positioning that I did. You see this icon, this emoji, this emoji. They wanted it to be exactly at this point, exactly. All these are like absolute positioning. This is where you use absolute positioning. See? Absolute. So it was tricky. When I do absolute, you need to find the right percent or the right percentage or the right pixel. So if you may use pixel, it may not work. You may want to use percentage. So it is just tricky. It just depends. So you need to just keep trying, keep testing. So it can be even this animation thing, this scroll, it might look perfect, but if you take it to big screen, you see how weird it is. So it's constant testing to know that, okay, it's now perfect though. So yeah, that's just it. These are the issues. So this is where testing comes in. So yeah, are you good?
Yes. Thank you so much.
All right. So yeah. So after now, I'll just hand off. I'll need to start recording with. All right. Someone has a question again. I think. Okay. Femi, you can unmute.
And then let me just the width of the button is different from that of the design.
All right. Let's go and sort that out immediately. We have the button here. The button. This is the button. The button has the height of the button is 52 and the width is 270. But I would not advise. Sometimes what people do, some mistake people make, they will go and give. It's not really. It's not like a mistake, but it's not really advisable because the width here is 270 and the height is 52. Some persons, which is not bad, some persons will go to the button and say width 270 pixel and height 52 pixel to have a perfect button. It is not entirely wrong, but I may not follow this approach. For me, I'll most likely not do this. What I'll do, I'll just work with padding. Instead of 1.5 rem, I'll just add maybe 3 rem. Maybe make it 3 rem on both sides. This is what I'll most likely do. Maybe 6 rem, it depends. See, maybe 6, maybe 5.5. 5.5 top, then maybe up will be 0.9 up and 0.9 down. 0.9. This is what I'll most likely do. See, it's the same thing now. I think that's it, yeah? Femi. Any other question? All right, if there's none, I'll just allow Michael take over from here. But I think I'll need to stop sharing first. And what I'll need to do next is I'll need to start recording my screen from the Google Meet because I'm using a different screen recorder.
Good evening, everyone. David has actually scratched the most difficult and the complex part. So I think this section is just for us to see what my approach is like and how I address things. So we have these two sections to deal with, which is the brand logo and the features. So I think to start with, we already have the client first system defined in our Webflow, but then let me just scan through the core structure of client first so we can know what we are doing, which is, of course, we are taking it from the section underscore the name of the section, padding global, container large, and of course our hard padding section large. So let's get started. So this is the work. I like to use shortcut a lot, but then I'll just try to, of course, give you guys the shortcuts I'm using. So for a situation like this, instead of coming here to drag in an element, I just press Window E and Control E, sorry, you can use Command E from your end if you're using Mac, and I type in a div block since that is what we are working with. So what we have here is the section arrow 1. I think the first thing I need to do even before I give it a class name is to define the type of element it is for SEO and accessibility purposes. So of course, this is a section element. Then I can give it a class name of, let's say logo list. So I can just say section underscore, or let me just use logo. Let me use clients instead, since we have clients lists. It will be section underscore clients. Okay, then more div block, which is command E. First one is going to be padding global. I love client first for a lot of reasons, and I think one of it is the fact that it helps with scalability of your websites. So let's say, for instance, you want to scale your website, just like if you're using a design system from a designer's perspective, and if your design system is well structured, there's a way you can just go to the main component and do a lot of adjustment, and of course it will reflect on the entire design. So I think that's one of the reasons why I love client first. By the time we need to adjust padding sections, you can just go to the parent and of course, or just do it on one of them and it reflect on one. So the next thing after padding global is container large. So I'm just going to add a div block or again and give it a class of container large. Sorry. Then another one is going to be for padding section large. So I think David already explained the difference between the container large and the padding section large, the reasons why we have them. So this is actually my own approach. I love to do it like this, padding section large. So as you can see, we have section, padding global, container large, padding section large. The same way we have in the core structure from the client first documentation. If you have time, you can of course go through it at your convenience. So back to our work. Then the next div block is now going to be the components. It's going to house the client's logo and whatever content we have inside. So I'm just going to give it clients underscore components. Sorry, it's going to be component. David, is it client underscore component or component underscore client? I think it's client underscore components. Yeah. Client underscore components. All right. Now, this client component is going to be the parent for everything I need to house. So let's go back to our design and see what we are building. So we have this section. Now, we have two sections here, actually. We have the left and the right sections. The reason why I'm saying we have two sections is because if you look at the Figma file, I think everybody can access it. We have the title, and of course, we have the logos. So it would be wrong for us to put these logos and the title inside just one single block because of animation purposes. We need to animate this part. And of course, this title is supposed to be different. So I am going to go back to my Webflow and I'll create two div block. Some people will probably not even create div block for this title. They will just put the title by the left and create a div block to house the logo by the right. But personally, there is no word like, oh, you are using too much div block when you're building. It's like I don't think I've heard it from anybody. So you can use as many div block as possible. I just like it to keep my designs clean and crispy. So here I'm going to add in two div blocks. So I can just duplicate this. Okay. Cynthia, Olatunji, go ahead.
Yes, please can you reduce your navigator spaces so we can see the main screen properly? The space is covering what you're doing, so you can barely see.
Oh, okay. So I'll just, is it better now?
Yes, thank you.
All right, you're welcome. Then the next person, Olatunji.
Yes. So my question is what's the difference between underscores and dash when you're giving your element a class name? Because I see that we have underscore somewhere and slash and dash somewhere.
All right. So the first time I started building websites, I just of course use all sort of class name even before I came to client first. And then I realized, so then I tried to export because I was using HTML, CSS, and all sort of things. So one thing that this underscore does is it helps you to contain. So if you're using Chrome, because I'm using Hack, let me see if I can install the client first plugin here. Film Suite rather, so I can explain better. So there is this thing called folders in your work. If you ask a front-end developer how they structure their work, there is usually folders that is containing literally everything that they are doing, for images, for images which are assets, including videos, and of course we have the HTML, we have the CSS, we have the JavaScript, and all of those things. So this underscores helps to define folder. Literally, I am explaining from the angle of when you are exporting. But if you are going to use it from the client first approach, I think it's just to make your design very clean. You can say you use underscore for like parents, and you use dash for maybe when you're combining words. So this is what I mean. For instance, here we use section underscore clients because we are combining two different commands. We are letting this section to be aware that, oh, you belong to clients. Now for padding global, it is just 2 words. I can't put the padding global together as the same words. I don't know if that makes sense to you. Look at container large too. Container large is just 2 words. Padding section large. But when we come to client component, we need to define like a parent folder that is going to house a lot of elements. So at that point, that is when we use underscore. Have I answered your question?
Yeah, it makes sense now. It makes sense. Thank you.
But if you have like, maybe I don't know what plan you're on your Webflow package, if you try to export your work and you're now dissecting it one after the other, and you will see the folder. So what this underscore, what I've realized it does at the back end also, it's helped to create like a subfolder to house each of those assets and elements. So it's just like a parent. So you use dash probably when you're combining words. But when you're trying to give a definite maybe parental class, then I think you should use underscore to just put the clarification. All right, so here we have 2D block. As you can see, the 2D block are stacking on top of each other, and that is because we are yet to define the direction, the display of this client component. It is supposed to be horizontal, but then before doing the display, I'm actually going to give these class names. Now, from this point, you can actually get creative with your class names. Even when you read the client first documentation, because you name. From this point onward, I think you define the name of your classes depending on the structure and the style of your project or what you're working with. Another thing is depending on probably what maybe you're working on within an organization, and they say, oh, this is actually how we like to define things. And those are the principles that you can follow from here onward. So I'm just going to give it client left, or let me use title wrap instead, because it's going to wrap the title wrapper. Then the next one is actually going to be client logo wrapper. Then I click on this client component and I flex it. Now we have the two coming to the left because typically we read from left to right, and I actually need to space them. So let's go back to the design and see what we have. So this is taking about 20 or let's say 10% of the screen size, which is the title. And then the logo scroll is taking about 80 or 90% of the screen size. I think at this point, we can use our discretion to just define what we have. But what is important that we need to note is the gap, which is about 36 rem. Now, from this point onward in the design, sometimes you can use grid, but I will not use grid here. I will use grid for the client logo, and I will explain how grid functions and work in Webflow. So here, I'm actually going to give this, let's say, let me give it 10% and see what the width look like. That's too small, so let's use 20. Okay. And this can take the rest of the 80%. Now, the reason why it's actually going slim like a line is because we don't have any elements or items inside. So I'm actually going to click here and give it a paragraph and copy the text. Of course, we are still going to change the styling. Copy text. Back to Webflow. And paste. And here we need to export the logos. can click on all these logos, exports. Now, for your exports, there are some cases where you might want to use PNG, SVG, depending on what you will use. But for logos and icons, preferably, I think I would advise you use SVG. So they can just come in crystal clear and you won't have to stress yourself. So, okay, we have the exports. Showing folder. So these are the exports. So I need to import all of this into my Webflow. Image upload. So something I need to do is to extract it. Extract all, yeah. All right, so we have them now. Then back to my hack. So untitled, select all, and you can put everything together at once. So here, like I said, I'm going to use grid. Now, when it comes to animation, there are layers upon layers that you need to build. For you to have like a scrolling item, just like we have it in Figma, you need to duplicate them. Then you can have one at the beginning, do component sets, have the other one at the next layer. So, but for this case, I don't want to animate yet. So I'm just going to put them in a grid. So this client logo wrapper, I'm going to create another div block inside it, which is going to be the client logo list. And it is the client logo list that I'm going to name as the grid elements to actually house all of these items. So let's come here and create the div block. My shortcut is not responding. I just use this. So I'm going to give this client logo list. And this is what I'm going to make as grid elements. Now, let me analyze the grid for us before we proceed. So for Flexbox basically is addressing direction. We have the horizontal, we have the vertical. And if you even check from the Webflow components here, from the elements we have here, there is the VFlex and the 8Flex, so which directs your items the way you want them. Now, one thing about grid is that some people find it very complex, but I'm actually going to explain. If you're using Microsoft Excel, if you're very familiar with it, you see some imaginary grid lines, and when you start typing, those lines form cells. We have the vertical and the horizontal. We have the horizontal rows, then we have the vertical columns. Then where those elements meet, we have them as cells. They are called cells in Microsoft Excel. Now imagine all of this to be your cell also. So if you click on the grid in Webflow, it comes with these 4 cells. Now in your head, you might think, oh, I already have 4 div blocks to work with. No, these are just imaginary grid lines to guide whatever you want to do. They are not going to come with a div block. If you want to use it, you need to insert a div block to hold each of your elements. But because we are just working on logo, we are not working on maybe some type of component that has titles, subheading, and all of those things. So I might not use div block here. So let me explain what I'm saying here. Inside this logo list, I'll click on the logo wrapper and drag in this item called Quick Stack. Now, we have the Quick Stack at the top and we have the grid at the bottom. If you can see this quick stack now, we have cell 1, we have cell 2. These cells, they appear as div block, meaning you can even style them, you can give them a class. But what we have for grid, you can't style them, you can't give them a class because they are imaginary grid lines. They are just guiding you to tell you, okay, this grid that you have created, now you have 4 cells, 2 at the top, 2 at the bottom, 2 at the left, 2 at the right. Now for you to adjust and add to your grid or remove, you come to the right here. So we have for the rows and we have for the columns. Now looking at how our design is structured, we have just row. We have we have just 1 row and we have how many assets? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we can say 6 columns and 1 row. So I'll go back to Webflow and then define my grid. So here, as you can see here, we have 2 rows. So I'm going to delete 1 to maintain 1 row. And then the column, I'm going to click on this plus to add to up to 6 columns. And then click done. Now, as you can see, we have 6 columns that can house our logo. And unlike this quick stack, if you want to edit your quick stack, it automatically comes with this that you can use to add to your columns. But we are not using quick stack for this because it is not the best option. You know, when you're doing your design in Figma, there are sometimes that you probably just you just frame your items, and there are sometimes you insist on, oh, I think I need to just put auto layout on this item, even though when you put auto layout and you ungroup it, it appears as frame. So there are different approaches to things, but in this instance, it is not even advisable to use quick stack. So I think the best elements to use here is either grid or flexbots. And the reason why I'm using grid personally is because it just helps to keep my design very well organized. I don't need to define the width, because as you can see, if I click here, they are literally the same sizes. Everything here, they're all the same size. So I click done to edit, then I can delete this quick stack now because we are using grid. Then I need to insert my image. So Command E, image. Then I need to choose. So let me use Walmart as the first one. So let's go back to our design and then define the width. Now this Walmart is not complete, so I think that will be from the design. As you can see, part of it is so let me see, Walmart. Okay, I think let me just copy this. Then yeah. Okay, so I have it complete here. So let me just replace just the Walmart alone. Okay, Walmart export as SVG. What's going on? Sorry, please. Let me do this from back end and just get it sorted once and for all. And any questions so far? So let me just get this format again and come back here. Or let me just proceed with the development. I think I'll come back to that because of our time. So let me come back to my Webflow. So we have Walmart. Then we need to define the height. So now when you're working with logo grid like this, it gets tricky. Tricky in the sense that if you look at the design, sometimes you might have some logos that the widths are shorter than the others. You might have some logos that the heights are longer than the others. So in that case, best bet for me, personally, my own approach, I like to define the height of the logo, because I believe what I'm working on, since it's on the horizontal plane, if I define the height, it's actually going to be very, very like synchronized with almost all the logos I have there. So let me go back to my design and explain what I'm saying. So if you look at this Amazon, now let me click on the Amazon. The height here is 32, the width is 106. Walmart, as you can see, the width of Walmart is different, but the height is still the same thing. So in that case, for my own preference, I like to use the same height to define my logo. So since we have 32, 32 is going to give us about 2 rem in Webflow. So I want to give it a class and define the height before I duplicate and of course replace all the elements. So I'm going to give it clients logo. Then I'm going to define the height to be 2 rem. Then I can of course duplicate. So now we are going to get here. So this is 6. So let's replace all the logos. Let's look at the arrangement. We have Amazon, Google, Spotify, Slack. So this is Amazon. Google. Spotify. Slack. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I think then this is Sony, I guess. So let's go back to the design. Yes, so now the reason why we have extra is because of course when I was pressing my Ctrl D to duplicate the item, I did an extra, so I can just come here and delete. Now, deleting this sometimes you just automatically remove the extra row of grid I've created. All right, now looking at the preview, this is what we have. But we need to change the styling of this text. And of course, we need to add these elements. So I'm actually going to import this Walmart and Sony logo again. And the reason is because I want to define this style we have in the text. If you look at this design, if you notice, we have these gradients. We have these gradient elements over here and here. So it's going to make the website look as if it is fading in. Something similar to what we have in Refocus websites. So let me go to Refocus. So if you come to this section now, if you look at the two edges here, it looks as if the logo is fading in and of course fading out. So we need to fix that part. But before we can, of course, get that, I need to insert the full logo for the Walmart and Sony. So let me just get the right export out, and then we can work with that. 1 second, please. So, okay, back here. Then let me go to my design.
You're not
All right,
sharing
you go.
yet.
You not see my screen?
No, you can see it now. That's good.
Oh, okay. All right, so let me turn off this gradient. So I have a copy of this work, so I can't touch the main one we have. And then, so because of this, so I think I need to remove this clip content. Good, so I can have the full format. Then I think I should even do this. All right. So now let me export the Walmart again. Okay, that's system 32. And then let me export Sony again. So they're still coming. I still want this Sony to be full. So I think I will just, let me just drag it to the top here, then copy it and export it again. All right, so let me go to my download and rename my Walmart and Sony logo. All right, so I've done that at the back end, then back here. So I'm going to go to Webflow. Then I can delete the previous Walmart and Sony logo and of course, bring in the new ones. So now the reason why this is appearing here is because I did replace when I was exporting. So of course I need to delete them. So to delete, I need to expand this. Then select this round circle here to check and select this also to check. Then I can delete. Yes, delete. All right, then let's upload the new asset, which is Walmart and Sony. All right, so now we have the full Walmart and we have the full Sony. So I'm just going to replace the images here as soon as they're done uploading. So personally, if I do not have maybe access to a design file that I'm working with, maybe access to edit, and I know personally for me to export some asset, I need to scrutinize it. I just create a blank document in Figma and then upload the project there. So I just copy it and paste it so I can have like a fresh asset I can move around. This, of course, shake it as much as I want so I can get the asset I need to export. So I believe this should work. Apologies, my system is... No, this should be Sun no formats. Replace. Sunny. All right, then let's do the formats also. Replace. Sorry, my system is hanging, so I think that's why we're facing this issue. All right, so what's going on here? Replace Spotify. No, Sunny, not Spotify, Michael. Sorry, my Arc browser is really acting up. So, all right, now we have everything set up. Then let's go back to our design and see what we are missing. I think the next thing I need to do now is to define these gradients. You know, the same way I showed us for what we have for refocus websites. So we need to define the gradients. And here we're actually going to use absolutes. There are no two ways around it. We need to use absolutes because we need to create one at the bottom, at the left, and another one at the right. So to do that, we need to click on the parent, which is now the logo list wrapper, and make it relative. Because anytime you want to use a relative element, you need to, of course, define the body. If you do not define like the next or the immediate parent, it is actually going to reflect on body. So let me explain what I mean. So here, inside the client's logo wrapper, now I need to add a div block. But then let me just give the client logo wrapper a minimum height of, let's say, 3 rems. Now, the reason why I'm giving it a minimum height is because I already defined the height of the logos. And I just don't want to limit it to giving it like 3 rems by the height. So I want to give it a minimum height of 3 rems. And the reason is because why it is important is you need to define height for the relative element. If you do not define height, most times it will not respect the absolute element you're creating. It will still jump to the body, or it's just going to give a very distorted form. So it's good to always define the height. So you can use either height or minimum height, but in this case, I'm using minimum height. Then I need to add a div block, which we are going to use for the gradient. Now, I said if you do not define the parent, your absolute is going to respect the body element and not the body. So here I'm just going to give it gradient, logo list gradient. Logo list gradient. So let's give it absolute. Okay, then our logo list wrapper should be relative. Always keep that in mind. It is important to define it to relative. Then where do I want to position this logo list gradient? Of course, to the left. And right now the position is absolute, so I can just come and click on the left item here, which is this. So if I click on this, sorry. So if I click here, now as you can see, we have it to the left. Now, if I apply whatever gradient, it may not take effect. The reason is because I need to define the width. So even if it's like 2 rem or 1 rem, if you look at refocus websites, as you can see from the edge here, where it's feeding in. So let's just assume what they have here is 2 rems. So I'm going to define ours to be 2 rems also. Any question? Oh, okay. So let me go back to the Webflow. And then, so we need to define the width to be, let's say 2 rem. Now, as you can see, it is covering it. Now, another thing I need to set, which is very important, is I need to set the alignment or the display to be center. So if I come to flex here, I need to set this to be center. Yes. So by the time I'm doing this gradient color, is actually going to be on top of it. Now we need to set the z index. So z index is like how you arrange your layers, what stays at the top and what stays at the back and what stays at the bottom. So yeah, because I want it to be at the top, I will just give it 1. I don't need to use maybe 5 or no, because what we are using, this neutral one is believed to be 0 because I do not give it any definition. So the next one should be, of course, 1. I don't need to go to the extent of 5, 6, or 7. Now, before I proceed, I already give this gradient to the left, and I need another one to the right also. So I'm actually going to duplicate it, which I've done, but they are still stacking on top of each other. So I need to give one a combo class of right and give it the position of right. So now I have one to the right and I have one to the left. So by the time I style this one to the left, of course, I just need to flip the styling on the right and it takes effect. So let's address what we are saying. So I need to give it a style of gradient. And of course, this angle is supposed to be 90 degrees. All right, so this first color is supposed to be white. %, and this one is supposed to be white also, but of course, let's say maybe 20%, or let's do 30. Now, as you can see, we have the effects, but this is not giving us the perfect position we have. So I just need to click on, since I've given it a combo class, the only thing I need to change is the degree. So if you come to the image here, so instead of 90, then of course I reverse it to 270. And we have it. Any questions so far? Any questions so far before we proceed? Now I need to style this, but the reason why I'm taking a bit time to style this is because I need to go back to our style guide and see what Dave has done, and of course use the appropriate class in terms of the styling that he has done. That's why I'm still holding on this. So I'm actually going to design the next section before I come back to style this. But any questions so far? Yes. Could you okay, Z index. Okay, so let me go to Figma and see if I can actually use Figma to break it down for you. So if you come to, so this should be zone to. All right, let me use this blank page. So we have this, I'm actually going to draw a rectangle and let's say give it color red. Why am I not seeing my rectangle? Sorry. My system is actually trying to shame me tonight, but God forbid. Rectangle. Can't even see anything I'm doing. So let me go back to Webflow and just break it in Webflow. Now, we have this client logo, which is different client logo, and we have this gradient. So now let me explain. If I remove this position absolute, now this is going to stack by the side. Now I need to put it on top. So that is where absolute comes to play. So absolute does not literally work for on top. If you want to probably use something to the back, like we have for this gradient at the back, you can use absolute for that. Let me see if I can reload my Figma and just make it work. Let me come back here and just create a new design and see, because I think it's best if I explain it in Figma. I can see somebody raising up their hand, but let me just try and do this. 1 sec. All right, so All right, now we have this rectangle and I'm giving it color red. Now, if I draw another rectangle and I give it, let's say, color blue, yeah, I am just stacking them on top of each other because of how what Figma can accommodate. But in the case of Webflow, when you're creating an element, depending on the display you have, you either stack them vertically or horizontally. Now, if you want to put an element maybe on top of each other, you want to send one element to the back, that is where you use absolutes. And that is also where Z index comes to play. So now in this case, this is going to have like Z index that is above on this. Now, if you look at a typical website, let me go back to refocus for instance. Now, as I'm scrolling, as you can see, this menu stays at the top. Whatever position they might have given this menu, I am confident that the Z index is higher than everything you have in display. That is why, irrespective of the elements you're scrolling, you will always have the menu at the top. So that is the work of the Z index. It helps you with the positioning of your items, what stays at the top and what stays at the bottom. I don't know, have I answered your question? Okay, oh, Figma has been misbehaving that way. Oh, okay, so not just me. All right, so any other question before we proceed? So we've talked about grid, why it is important, and the imaginary grid lines we have. And we briefly talked about quick stack. Of course, I said it is not best for our kind of design and the layout we are trying to approach at the moment. So what I'm going to do next is to go back to our design and then, of course, address the next section. So let me go back to our design. Then the next section is actually is it just me or can anybody see the design? Let me know if this is happening to me alone.
No, I can't see it.
Okay, okay, so I'm not, so this is from Figma.
Yeah.
I've actually been blaming my system, funny enough. So any questions so far? I think let me see what now we need to get the visualization of the design to proceed. So let me just quickly do a quick recap. Of course, we started with the core structure of the client first, and I explained the reason why we have underscore in some class naming, and of course why we have dash in some class naming. And sometimes to actually avoid having a very long class name, so another thing that is allowed is actually abbreviations. You can use abbreviations. Trust me. For example, if you're trying to say maybe like image, you can use img, depending on the words that is actually accompanied. And again, depending on who you are designing for. So don't just, the reason why it is called client first is because the client needs to, of course, be able to navigate and use it. Then, of course, we define how we need to have two wrappers. And I explained the reason why I always have wrapper for my title is just to help me clear my design needs. Another thing, if you can remember, there's like a 32 gap between these two, and which we need to define. So if you click on the component, which is actually flex, we need to define the gap, these two, so which is 32 pixel, and that's going to give us, so another thing, so let me put 32 pixel. Now, if you have the client first installed, there's something called pixel to rem in client in FinSuite attributes, meaning it's actually going to convert everything you have pixel to rem in your website. But alternatively, another thing you can do is just to use multiplication. So here that we have 32 pixel, and of course rem is best for web, I can just say 32 times 16 rem, enter. Sorry. Sorry, it's going to be division. 32 divided by 16 rem, enter. And of course, we have to, because 32 is greater than 16, so it's 32 divided by 16 rem, and we have enter. So you can always use that to, maybe if you don't want to go through the steps of doing the conversion in your head, just come in, type it, and of course you can do the conversion. Now, before we proceed, while Figma is loading, if you look at the design, we have another font in between. And I already downloaded the fonts, which I will just, of course, take us through how to install custom fonts. David explained how to install Google Font for us. Then I'm just going to install the custom fonts. And most times, if I want to actually install a font, you know, we have different versions. We have the TTF, we have the TrueType fonts, we have the OTF. The best font for web is actually WOF. So let's say you already have your maybe Poppins, or you have your Interfonts. You can use different online converter to actually convert, like maybe TTF to WOF converter. and then convert to WAF, it is always best to actually use WAF for web browser. Even front-end developers will tell you that is actually what is best. So you can come here and just type maybe TTF to WAF, and of course you will find different options. So these are my two best anyways. Like as you can see, I have them clicked. And the reason why they are my two best is because I think there's limits. I think this one I can do about 5 at a time. This one I can do about 2 at a time. And there are some cases where you're working with some variable fonts. As designers, I believe we know what variable fonts are. So you have too many fonts that you need to install. So that's the reason why I have two options. So let me just go back to Webflow and then install the fonts I downloaded while Figma is loading. I really hope it loads before immediately after this so we can proceed. So let me come back to file and dashboard here. I'm going to setting. Site setting is where you install your fonts. I've downloaded it and I've done the conversion already. So I just come to fonts. So now we are not using Google Fonts. We need to upload custom fonts. So there are two things you need to take note, which is, I think the first one is actually the name of the font. You know, if we were to install from Google Fonts, we can just come here and search and install from Google Fonts. But personally, I like to just upload my fonts, and by the end of the website, if I see that, okay, I didn't use maybe a particular style from the font, I take them out to just reduce the load on the website. So upload. Then this is the name of the font, Widya, and I've downloaded the WAF version. But what we are actually using is actually the italic version. We're not using the regular. But I'm actually going to select the two and just show you something. Now, here, as you can see, font family Widya, font family Widya. There are some cases whereby if you're installing custom fonts, instead of font family Widya, the name you're seeing here, it will tell you maybe Widya italic, and here you see Widya regular. It is always best for you to keep the family the same way, to make sure you erase every other external text and just maintain a singular name. So what I mean is, here, let me install Widya. I'm unable to delete this. Okay, so let me upload this and explain something to you inside the designer. So let me go back to the designer. Of course, I've uploaded the fonts. And that's just one of the things that will help your styling. So if you go back to clients first, for instance, and so I'm going to duplicate this text. So I can use this to show you the example. Then let me just give it a class of, let's say, italics. I'm actually going to delete this class. So just plain italics. Now, if you come to your font selection, as you can see here for custom fonts, you can see the Widya. Now, if you did not give it like the same name, you're actually going to have different fonts spelled out. But if you give it the same name and you click on Widya, then you just need to come to your weights. Here I have normal. So this is actually supposed to give me the options for the italic and the weight. So I think let me just take this off and go and inspect the font I installed again. But before then, let me check my Figma. Okay, I think this is loading. Can anybody see the logo design?
No.
So I think, let me go back to Webflow. But can you see? Okay, let me check from the Figma app if the browser is not showing it. Let me see if the app is actually going to show it. So if the app can't show it, I'll just share my entire screen and we pick it from there. So my Figma is still loading. Still loading. Figma, why tonight overnight? So even the app is actually not loading. David, are you on this call? What do we do from here? Okay. Okay. So I think I can.
Yeah, I'm here.
All right. So I'm actually going to like share my entire screen now. So I think Figma browser is giving us issues. So I'm actually going to share from the Figma app. So I'll stop sharing and share my entire screen, which is risky. All right. So I'm sharing my entire screen now. All right. So now if you look at this design, so this is the font I'm talking about, this new amazing, this font for the amazing. So as you can see, it's different from the pop-ins that we have. So that's how to, of course, install the extra font. So I'm actually going to, this extra film is not needed there. Okay. So now this is the section we're about to create. We are done creating this section, but I'm here to give these industry leaders a style because I need to, of course, go back to the body to the style guides to define that. So we're going to start with this and explain this. This is, of course, a span element, and then how we export these icons. Now, for these icons, let me just export them now. There are different approaches to it. Some people would say, okay, they will export this icon alone and then put it inside a div block, which is going to be the icon wrapper, and give the icon wrapper a padding. And some persons will tell you, oh, I will just export this star and this background together. So it depends on the type of animation we are doing. But I think for this class, I'm just going to export them together. So let me click on everything like this. Now the names here are not defined. So I'm actually going to define the names. So this is going to be, let's say, data. This last one is data, then this one is team, and this next one is just going to be, let's say, sync. Then we have the first one, which is let's say dashboard. Right, so I'm going to export dashboard, sync, team, and data. And of course, I'm using SVG. So I'm going to put them inside my downloads and just use my untitled here. So let me just put this as feature icons. All right, so I believe we have them. So let's come back here, back to our Webflow. Now let's start building the next section. So David used section here, and I'm using a div block. All right, so I wouldn't say there's much difference here, because if you're looking at the client's first course structure, they're saying section underscore whatever. And so section is an element in HTML. Then of course, div block is also an element, but it is good for you to define it for SEO and of course optimization purposes. If I'm going to use command E section for the next one, there is no reason for me to give it a tag. As you can see, it comes with the section tag automatically. But if I'm using a div block, I need to come here to define a section. So just for consistency, I'm going to use this section. I'm just going to copy this class name and put it here, and then drag this element inside this. So because David has started with section, I think for consistency, let's just maintain section. So I'm just going to delete this div block. So the next one, I'm just going to create a section. For the next section, we have our section, then we can give it class name of section underscore job. Then a div block for padding global. And a div block for container large. And another div block for padding section large. Then another div block for the components. So let's just say feature underscore components. Fine. Now let's look at the structure of our design. So we have now, if you look at the structure of this design, you can tell that this feature and this bold text and this subtext, they are closer to each other, and this element are also closer to each other. So here also we have two div block, one at the top, one at the bottom. So if you're going to flex it here, instead of using flex horizontal like we have for this section for the logo list, we're going to have flex vertical here. So I'm going to create a div block. One is actually going to house everything we have at this top here, and then I'm going to create a div block for this feature only. So here we're going to have two div blocks. So we're going to have two main div block. One is going to house all these items at the bottom. The other one is going to house the item at the top. Then from this one at the top, we're going to have two div block inside it, one for the features and one for this title and the body. So let's get that done. So div block one actually going to be, so now I can just name it feature up, and I'm going to have two div block inside here. So now, to make your work easy, if you have like maybe reusable elements, like for instance, what we have here is actually what we are trying to recreate again. This all-in-one power, I can just copy it. So instead of creating the second div block for the feature top, I'm actually just going to paste it and I'll drag it to the top. Then of course, I'm actually going to, here, I can decide not to give it a combo class and just right click here and of course, duplicate the class. And just give it feature. Let me look at the text that we have in our Figma. So it's just features. So that's what I'm just going to give it. And here I'm going to right click and copy this text for the next part. So this is our H2, I believe. Yes, that is our H2. So here, H2. And paste rest of the text. So I'm going to, because I've changed this, so let me change this to features also. All caps. Yes, it's all caps. Then, so okay, let me just copy this features again back to my hack. So explore our amazing features. All right, so this is all right. Then I need to work on the alignment. So now for this part, I need to select it and give it a span element. Then give it a class of, let's say, feature span. Then I need to change the font style here to be width. And I think I need to change, okay, the weight is normal. So let me check the color. Do we have our color style here? Not yet. So I will need to copy the color code. So back to my Figma. What am I missing? Whatever is wrong with Figma, this show properties. Okay. Oh, so it's actually a linear. Oh, amazing. Amazing. So we can actually achieve this in Webflow. So the first one, copy the color code back to Webflow. So we need to, so now there is a very tricky way we can actually approach this. And this is actually going to require custom code. Yes, this is actually going to require custom code because I have something similar that I've done like that before. And let me get it, which is actually going to require custom code. 1 second, please. All right, so let me come here. So this is a previous project. And this project is actually under NDA. Okay, so let me give it a plain color for now, because it's actually going to require custom code, and I don't want to, I don't want to take you through the stress of that right now, because we need to write some styling of CSS to get that done. So let me just give it a plain color. So if it was a background, we can just come here and select color, but because it is actually a text, for you to achieve that in Webflow, you need to use custom code actually. I have it on a live project. I think David is aware of the project, but there are some ND on it, so I'm sorry, that's why I can't share, because this video is going to YouTube. So let me just paste this here. Then we need to check the size. Sure we are doing the right thing. So the size here is 52, and the size of our text here is 36. So this needs to be higher because for it to match the styling that we have. So I'm just going to give it 52 pixel, and of course divide by 16 rem. All right, and I think we're done for this. So now we need to actually centralize it. As you can see, what we're having, everything is just to the left. So we need to define the flex, which is going to be vertical, and then center. Then from this feature top also, we actually need to define it to be center, vertical, center also. All right, then we need to define the styling that we have for the background. I don't know why I keep coming to my browser Figma, which is not working. So here the color for the background, show more properties, copied. Then of course this text. So back to arc. So I think Figma is one of the disappointments we are facing this night, and I didn't see it coming actually. So this is the background. So we already have the styling from what David did from the one at the top. So I just need to change the background. So you can, of course, always reuse elements like that. Now, in the case whereby, let's say this word is actually feature, and I need to repeat this feature everywhere on your website, and I don't need to copy and paste. The reason is because if I copy and paste multiple times and I am changing the text, it is actually going to affect it. So in this case, I will need to turn it to components. If at all feature is what we are having repetitively on the website. So here, if you click on create components, it's actually going to turn this feature into a component. So let me just give it feature, for instance. I know it is not a component element, but I just want to use it to explain. Now, this is feature. If I come to this component element here, I can see the feature as a component. If I click, let me drag it on top of this feature top now, for instance. Now, whatever styling I make to one is actually going to reflect on the other. So elements like nav bar, your footer, and some kind of reusable components that you have on your website. So this is actually how you create a component out of which in Webflow. And if you need to detach a component, you just need to right click, and it says on link instance. So when you're link instance, as you can see, this is now a normal asset, and this one is still a component. So that is actually how you create a reusable component and reuse it in Figma. So I'm going to delete this, and of course unlink this assets. So unlink the instance, and then we are good to go. So the next div we need to create is the feature button. So div block, and we give it a class of feature button. Then let's go back to our design. All right, so okay, we are missing this text actually. So let me copy this text. Copy as text. So now I'm actually going to show you something. You know, I said we can export this as SVG. Then I think I'll show you how to use it as SVG inside Webflow. So let me just paste this text. So that's actually going to give us some custom code. And let me see. So yeah, I think it's actually going to give us in form of code also. So here, I'm actually going to get a paragraph. Then I think I need to give this, let me just say feature header. Then this is actually supposed to be aligned vertical, center, and of course, the alignment here is supposed to be center as well. Now, there is something called the embed elements. So the embed element is actually not showing here. Dave, please permit me to actually, so let me just take you guys through it. Let me go to, okay. maybe my next class, I'm actually going to address it, because now the reason why I can't use embed elements here is because, of course, we are taking this class from the free plan. If you scroll down here, we have this embed elements, but I can use it from my own workspace, but that will require me to actually move this project to my workspace, and that's going to be a lot of back and forth. But what this embed elements does is it allows you to, you are in your Figma, you can actually copy icon as SVG. Right click here and you copy as SVG. Now, the benefit of copying icon as SVG is that if you want to change the color of an icon in Webflow, maybe you want to create like an over interaction whereby when you over on the icon, the color changes from this blue to black. The cases like that for SVG and icons, I would recommend you export them as you copy them as SVG like that, then put the custom code inside Webflow. Hopefully in my next class, I will take permission from David and of course move this to my workspace during that time frame so I can address it. But literally that's what that does. But yeah, we have already exported it as PNG, so we're using it as PNG for our file. But for you to actually change color of icons, I will recommend you use embed elements, and of course you export them as icons. So let me go to the theme suite attributes so I can explain what I'm saying better. I think from the style guide, I think we have things like that there. So let me go to pages, style guide, and go to the icon sections. So you understand what I'm saying better. All right, so we are here. So let me scroll down to the bottom to the icon sections. All right. Now, if you look at these icons, as you can see, they are code. If you click on these settings here, these are the SVG code. So let me duplicate one of this and just play around it so you can understand what I'm saying better. Now, if you come to this asset here, right click on it, copy as SVG, then you come to Webflow here. So click on these settings, Control A, then you paste your own code. Now I can't paste the code because of the open plan, as you can see. I can't paste the code, so I can't even make any edits. Nothing is going to work. But two things that you actually need to take note is you need to change the height. You need to, I will actually try to address this in the next class so you can understand how it works better. But what that does is you'll be able to animate any of these icons by the time maybe you want to change the color for instance. Now, for me to change the color of this, let me just give it a combo class of tests so you can see what I'm saying. I just need to come here and change the color. But if you import an SVG as an SVG icon, not that you're copying the custom code, you will not be able to actually change the color. So whatever color you export is just going to deal with it like a PNG element. So I think that's the reason why the custom code is necessary. There are some cases where you want to do some animation or do some further styling on your project. And that is actually where that is necessary. I'm going to remove this styling and go back to my page. I actually want us to finish this section and we are through with the top parts. Then of course we need to deal with the bottom part and we address the spacing. So let me go back to my design. So we have 4 columns. So I'm actually going to use grid here also. And if you click on the list items here, which is the feature here, as you can see, the gap is 12 pixel. So this is the auto layout item. So the spacing here is 12 pixel and of course 4. So back to Webflow here. And this is the one for the bottom. So I'm actually going to create another div. I just like to put everything inside the div personally. That's what works for me. So I'm going to give it feature items. Not items now. Let me put it list. Then of course, like I said, I'm using grid. Now grid automatically comes in 4 cells. So I delete the bottom row and add 2 more rows. Or another thing I can actually you can use here is of course the div block. So I think let me just make it flex and then create a div block inside. Now, if you're using flex, if you're not using grid, now you need to define the width of each of the items. If not, they will actually compress one another. So I created a div block inside the feature list. Now I'm not using grid. I want to use another method, which is actually the flex. So this is going to be my feature item. And for my feature item, so because we have 4 elements, I can just say, let me just give it a maximum width of, let's see, let me go back to the design. Let's say maximum width of course, sometimes it's not by this design here. This is 2261 pixel. So I can just say 260 pixel. Let me add it to it here. Okay, then of course divide by 16 rem to have it as rem. Then I need to create an image and insert the icons I exported. So I think I have that inside download, untitled, then feature icons. So I'm just going to select everything and start imports. So now in this case now, I cannot change the color of these elements, even though they are SVG items. Do you get? I cannot change the color, even though they are SVG items. So I think that's the reason why the custom code comes. That is the benefit of it. Then copy text for the title. This is going to be our H3, I believe. So we have H2, then this is going to be our H3. Okay, we're still going to go and change the styling from the parent, or we can as well change it from here. So I think this is the first time we're using H3 here. So what is the font size in the design? This is 28 pixel. Okay, 18 pixel. The line height, okay, popping board, 18 pixel. So I can actually just change it here to, okay, we don't have bold. So now this is one of the reasons why I would go extra mile to install all my fonts as custom fonts. Now we install this from Google. Now I need the 700. I can't find it. So this is one of the benefits. So I personally, I don't use Google Fonts. I try to download whatever font I need to use, convert it to WORF, check all the font weights and the font variations I need to use, and then of course install them as custom font. Because right now the bold we need to use, we can't find it. So I'm just going to set for semi-bold and change this to 18 pixel or 16 rem. Then the body of the text. So I think there is one thing I need to address here before I proceed. All the body of the text here is actually having this color. So I can change that from the paragraph. And that way I won't need to stress to change this again. So if I click on paragraph, for instance, or paragraph, and just change the color here. Good. So I think that way I won't have to deal with this color also. So I don't even need to give it a class. You know, one of the good of client space is to minimize the amount of class that you also use. So I think I'll retain this as the color, then copy the body of the text. Yeah, I think that's the most common color we have. So what we have done is really, really good. So I'm going to copy, and of course, so for this one, I'm not going to replicate all the content. I'm just going to duplicate them. This is supposed to be paragraph. All right, now we need to address the styling. Now, if you look at the styling from our Figma file, let me click on the text here. So here we have the gap here is 4 spacing. And then if you click on the entire card here, which is the list item, we're having 12. And this is actually 4. So that means this title and the body is supposed to be in a div lock because the gap is actually closer. What some persons will do is they will click on this, maybe they will give this a class name and then give it padding top, margin top and margin bottom. Personally, I wouldn't do that. What I would do is just to put these two in a div block, just the same way they've done here to put them as text. Then of course, this is going to be a standalone and then I can give it another spacing inside. So let's go to our Webflow to actually actualize that. So now I can just right click on this heading and wrap it in a div block and then drag this paragraph inside it. Then the S heading is supposed to be at the top. All right, then this can be feature item text. Then of course I'm going to flex it and give it the spacing of 4 pixel. So 4 pixels is supposed to be 2.25 rem. So it's supposed to be vertical. Yes, so this is the 4 pixel. Then I'm going to click on this flex it also vertical. Let's say to the left, and this is now going to be the 12 pixel. Good, then we've achieved this. So now we need to just duplicate this item into 4. So right click, duplicate or Ctrl D. Good, then we have these 4 items. Now we need to address the space between these 2 elements. So I'll go back to my design. I just like to have a pixel perfect design. And I think that's one of my own unique selling points. So here we have 32 pixel. 32 pixel, that's 2 rem, if I'm not mistaken. So we need to click on now the component, which is housing the top and the bottom. Yes, you know, we've given it the direction of flex horizontal. Now we need to give it the gap of 2 rem. Boom. And then have it. Now we're having excessive space here. So we need to address it. And the reason why we're having this excessive space is coming from the padding section large. So we can give it a combo class of remove top and then make this top 0. Boom. And there we go. So I'm going to publish, and of course we're going to preview it and see what our final solution has been. So here I'm supposed to, of course, update this content. I'll do that, but I just want to see what the preview will look like. So here we go. Mentorship, reload.
Where did you call the remove top from?
So it's from the padding section large. I gave it a combo class. So let me go back to Webflow. And I think I would explain that in Figma also. So this is it. So let me remove it again. So this is what we're having. So I gave it a combo class of remove top, and I made the top 0 pixel. So now let me go back to Figma and just explain that. So now if you look at the gap between these 2, there is auto layout in this project. So let me just take this to the left and then use my ruler here. Now, if you look at the gap between these 2, so this is 84. 84 divided by 16, that is going to give us how many rem? So that's about 5 rem. Now, looking at our design is even already having 8 rem top and bottom. So there are 2 ways to actually approach this. Now, if this is actually a consistent size, let me take it to the top and see what we have here also. Let's say this is like this, and this is like this. So of course, let me drag this outside. So now if this is, okay, I think this is a consistent spacing. Now, if this is a consistent spacing in your work, there are 2 ways to approach it. Sorry. All right, so there are 2 ways to approach it. Now, if I click on this remove top, if you notice what we are having there is about 84 pixel, which is about 5.25 rem, but I'm actually going to make it 5 rem. I can decide to make this about, let's say, 3 rem at the top, then 3 rem at the bottom. But then it may actually affect the overall structure of the design. Now, because I changed the paragraph color, you can see this one is affected also. So I will go back and actually address this. Then, so in that case, I would not advise you do this. It is actually going to destroy your entire design. So we may just probably reduce it from 8 to 5. Let's say 5 rem here, and then 5 rem here. And of course, we repeat what we've done before, which is going to be remove top. So the remove top is just going to make this gap. So now this gap is 5 instead of 10. In this case, we can maintain 10 because we have 2 colors intersecting each other. Let me go back to Figma and just use that to explain. If you look at this footer now, in these other places, by the time we are developing, we are definitely going to remove top. But for this footer, we are going to maintain it because we need it here and we need it outside also because we have 2 colors intersecting each other. But in the case where we have the same color, you would definitely have to maybe remove top or remove bottom depending on the structure of your design, just for you to maintain consistency. That is my own approach because I just love to design as close as possible to the Figma file that I have. I can guarantee that majority of my designs are about 80 to 90% accurate. And the reason why I said 80 to 90% accurate is because there are some designers, of course, they will just give something that is going to stress the hell out of your life. So for this one, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to give it text color alternate. I think that's already a color in Figma. So now the reason why I'm able to actually use this color alternate is because I've been using this new client face, of course, frequently. So I know what class name they have for whatever color I might want to use. So that's why I'm just able to get this color as alternate. So we have this as color alternate, and of course we have the rest of the body as this gray. So what I just need to do is to update the contents and update all the icons. So let me check our Figma file to see the icons we have. I think we're rounding up already. I would try and see how I can actually move this work into a workspace where we can explore these icons. So you can see how to change the color of the icons. So we have this sync, theme, and data. So that's the arrangement, sync, theme, data. Sync, theme, data.
So the remove top is
So
like
now,
an existing class in the style guide, right?
no, it's a combo class. I added it. It is not an existing combo. It is not an existing class in Client First. I created it, and I gave it the yes. So yeah, I created it, and I just so now because I've added it to this padding section. If I add a new padding section, it will always be there as a suggestive class that I can reuse. So I always have three things. I always have remove top, I always have remove bottom, and there are some cases where I have remove both. So depending on the design. So
yeah, you just customize it, you know, to make it, you know, like I said, it's different for different people. So he customized it. The main one is still there, but this he just added the combo class to, you know, make it suit whatever he wants to do.
yes. So I think so I need to give this a class, obviously, and then so let me just say feature icon and give it in this case I'll because of course it's like a square item, I can just say maybe 2rem. That's too small. 4. Okay, yeah, 4 is fair. So now I'm just going to repeat the class name across all the icons. Feature icons. Then this first one, actually need to change it to this and give it a class name of feature icons too. All right, let's publish and see what we've done so far. Okay, I still need to update the content as well. Any question, you can start screening the questions. We had a lot of break in transmission because of Figma, and it actually disrupted the flow of the class. But then I just want to believe I was able to impact and you learned one or two from today's class. So you can start throwing the questions. We are like 19 minutes past our closing time, so you can ask your questions. And I think, David, I'm just going to update this text and then hand over the microphone to you so you can, of course,
all right,
close the class.
The rest is history, you know. It's just to change text, which honestly all of us can do. So yes, that is what it is, man. That is how simple it is. You know, people have different approach, different ways of you know, so you can use Client First, but then get creative just to be able to achieve what you want to achieve. You can literally build any layouts in this world. There is no website, there's no layouts that you cannot create. I put it to you that there's no layout you cannot create with Client First. You don't have to be creative and just think problem solving, think how you can do this, ask questions, question yourself, question what is possible and what is not. So you can literally do anything at all. You know, custom code is there, you know, functionalities are there, you know, lots of amazing things. So you can just, so, you know, and what will sell you more is problem solving. It's not even about learning Webflow or learning the tool or the framework. They are important, but the most important thing again is problem solving. That is where the magic happens, you know. So yeah, that is it about today's session. Like as usual, the whole class will be compiled, and I'll upload it to YouTube, and I'll send the link to the group, so whoever wants to go rewatch can go and rewatch, and just keep practicing, keep testing different waters, testing different layouts, and all of that. In a max 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, you'll get past the phase of being a beginner. You'll be a pro. Just pro level comes with how many projects you've done. Pro level comes with how many problems you've solved. So it's not even about this class. It's about you pushing yourself, building stuff, doing stuff, all of that. So yeah, as usual, as you build, if you have any question, drop it on the group. You have any issue, drop it on the group. I'll always be there to sort it out with you and help out one way or the other. So yeah, that is all for today. We've exceeded, plenty time, which is good. So yeah, so every other thing we'll be doing now will be on the group until we meet again next Friday for day 5.